Welcome to You Can't Laugh at That, the podcast where we take topics you can't laugh at and we find ways to laugh at them in the never-ending quest to prove that anything can be funny. Today, Steve Mers, my loyal and exuberant co-host, is joining me from the psychiatrist's couch. Steve.
Hello, future David, pretending to be earlier David.
This is something that we did at the beginning of the podcast and not at the end of the recording. Just want to reiterate that. Joining us today from New York City, he's been on America's Got Talent, TruTV, Gotham Comedy Live. You can hear him on Sirius XM and the Rad Dude Cast with Anthony DeVito and Brendan Eyre. And he's got an album that you can find anywhere where you can find comedy albums, right?
Anywhere.
The Amazing Greg Stone. And that is the name of our guest. Greg, what's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. Look, before we get into this, do not let me talk about ADD, pedophilia, or religion. Whatever we do, I don't want to get any of those two topics. So just before we get into that, don't let me talk about that. I'd rather not.
Yeah, those topics are actually banned on this podcast. So
yeah, it's funny to do when you do the intro after the podcast. Right. Be like, oh man, fun. It's like, well, I know how this is going to go. Hey, I'll just let you guys know I had a really great talk. So you're in for a fun one. We already did it, so it's great.
He's not wrong. We did this. It's been like 2 hours. So we tell the comics, hey, have a 2 hour window set aside just in case we fall down a rabbit hole. And that is what happened. So enjoy this episode of You Can't Laugh at That.
You can't laugh at that.
Today we're talking about homophobia.
Oh, great.
And, the whole purpose of the podcast is to take topics that comedians have made funny that in like regular everyday situations, people will be like, no, you can't laugh at that. That's not funny. You can't, Yeah. And just to prove that, kind of going back to what I was talking about humor in the workplace, like you can laugh at anything,
right? If
you use the right perspective, the right delivery, the right intent, anything is funny. And so we kind of dive into the psychology behind that, the art and science of stand-up, essentially.
Can I give you my rules for that?
Yeah, let's go.
Everything. My rules for comedy. Whenever I have like young Padawans underneath me, I always say I'm like. Original and funny, my only rules for comedy. You can talk about anything. If it's original and it's funny, it doesn't matter, right? It's like this idea that you can't talk about things. You guys you're all in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I graduated high school. My first day in college was 9/11. Not 9/11. It was like, not the first day, but I was in college when 9/11 happened. And I'm right outside of New York City. So I watched the towers go down with my own eyes, right? Everyone got weird. New York was weird. It was crazy, right? And not until Gilbert Gottfried made that first 9/11 joke, and I remember it specifically, did I breathe and go, oh, like we can make jokes about this now. And the way I always felt about that is, for me, and I worked in an emergency room with doctors who, children who were coming in burned to death by abused dads. You'd see them and they would do these jokes. And they would go, you laugh or you cry. And that is some people's way of healing. So I attack a lot of that stuff because that's how I deal with it. When 9/11 happened, that's how we kind of dealt with it. And if you don't deal with it that way, that's 100% okay. But don't take away other people's ways of healing. It's like a plate of, it's if someone gives you a steak with mushrooms. You don't like mushrooms, don't eat the mushrooms. But don't go to the fucking restaurant and be like, you can't serve mushrooms anymore. You know what I mean? But
well, what if people are throwing mushrooms at everybody? Because that's kind of how the jokes work. You're just going around like, here's some mushrooms. I know you don't like them.
Right. But that's exactly the point too of like, yeah, there are people out there being like, well, they're giving you poison mushrooms. And it's like, yeah sure. Don't talk to those people. But if you have a trusted comedian and that's why comedy is about trust. It's about like, I love this guy. I trust him. And that, sorry, I am heavily caffeinated right now and I do have ADD, but that was kind of the thing that happened with Louis C.K. That like when that stuff kind of went down, it did kind of lose a little bit of people's trust for him. And so when you lose that trust a little bit, it's harder to go along with them. So it's a balance. So it's like, take your comedian and trust them. If they say fucked up things, be like, you've said a million things before that I loved. So I'm not just going to fucking fault you for the one thing you said at an open. Oh my God, I got to stop talking. But that's just how I feel. I can feel myself screaming right now. But like it's like don't take away my method of healing, even if it doesn't work for you. That's okay. Just put it to the side. Don't say the restaurant can't serve it.
There's like a whole difference between like, okay, I have my rights to do whatever I want, like, my right to make a 9/11 joke, but then you've got people that are like, but then there's like, you're subject to criticism. There's nothing illegal about making a 9/11 joke, and they're perfectly entitled to be like, hey, I don't like that. Okay, cool. Now moving on. That's just that simple.
But that's how comedy works. If a joke doesn't work with enough people, a good comedian will no longer do that joke. That's just how comedy works. No good comedian, no comedian who's making money does material that just bombs for an entire hour, unless we've seen those hours. There are just people who just did, but you get what I'm saying, aside from those shitty hours that we've seen that people do that aren't great. And every good comedian will do jokes that work. And if they don't work, you just weed them out. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's fine. But just don't tell me that you heard one line I said that you didn't like, and now you're like, you shouldn't be working. And it's like, because I've done, dude, just to get into that, I told a story about, I used to work in an ER, and I told you that I had a patient come in who, this is a long story short, they were going to hospice, but there was no room for them in hospice, so they had to stay in the ER where I was working. I'm talking to this guy for a bunch of days. No family comes to see him. Goes up to hospice. Ends up telling me that he is essentially been attracted to children his entire life, and that he had never done anything about it. That it was just like, this is why his family's not here. He told his mom used to talk to his mom about it. And his mom was like, we will get through this. This is what his mom dies of cancer. He tells his dad because he needs the help. His dad breaks his nose, tells the family, they exile him. He moves to Paterson, New Jersey, and essentially just kept himself from doing anything his whole life. So this is just this wild fucking thing that happens that I'm talking to this guy about. And I would tell that story on stage, but I would do it in a funny way. That was just the very serious, sad story because he died of lung cancer. It's all fucking crazy. But I tell that story, and I've had multiple people after come up to me and be like, you can't talk about pedophiles. You're making this guy look like a hero. And I'm like, he is a hero. By all extents, he did nothing wrong. He just had a brain problem or a thing that literally he never acted on, and as to what he would tell me. So it's like, don't tell me that I can't talk about this. And the idea that I'm not talking about it is keeping people from understanding that could be a reality that people are living in. Right? I kind of lost where I'm going with this whole thing.
No, that's totally true. I totally agree with that, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like this whole thing of like, just because you hear a word, you can't be like, shut it off. Like, I can't do that. You're talking about pedophilia and it's bad. It's like, no, comedians are supposed to talk about things that other people aren't comfortable talking about because we do it in a funny way, which makes it easier. We are sugar on the medicine. That's what we are. So like, let us be sugar on the medicine. Now, anyone can be a comedian. So a lot of people are just trying to shove rocks in people's mouths, but I don't count them. So a lot of like people are counting these comedians who aren't necessarily good, or they just got famous fast or whatever. But it's like, a good comedian is sugar on the medicine. So like, let us be sugar on the fucking medicine. Did you ask for this? Look, you have me on. I don't stop talking. That's just who I am. ADD, baby.
It's okay. No, it's all right, man.
But it's good stuff. I mean, I'm not going to stop you, if you're making a good point. And I think it kind of ties into what we're talking about today. I mean, just, the idea of like, nobody would choose that. Like, he wasn't like, hey, Dad, I decided I want to be a pedophile. Like, that's not how that works. It's, it's chemical imbalances. It's things that we didn't have an understanding of, that the more and more we do research, the more and more we see cases like this, we can kind of, we can not necessarily diagnose it, but, we realize that it's something it's an imbalance in the brain.
Right.
But that couldn't do anything about it other than not fuck kids.
But everything is an imbalance in the brain, in the reality, right? Mm-hmm. But it's what we can use in society, right? So like gay, you can say, is an imbalance in the brain, right? It's just you're more chemicals going towards another thing. But in society, it doesn't fucking matter. Have sex with men, be in love with men. It's a great thing. No one is being harmed, right? And this is a great example, not a great example. And also, I'm not a doctor. So again,
full disclosure.
Full disclosure. But look, you look at transgender, right? And transgender people, they believe that they believe, but like they inside of them, like, I am truly a man, right? So they have a surgery to make them a man, right? There are also people who believe that below, like there's a case of, I forgot what the name of the brain ailment is that they want to have below their knees removed. They don't believe their feet are their own. And there's cases of them going to crazy countries that allow them to have that removed. And it comes out that they're happier once their legs have been removed. Now, one, you'd look at as you go, well, transgender is a beautiful thing. We're getting these people happy. That's great. And the other, you're like, no, that's a mental disease. I don't think any of them are mental diseases. I think all of them are, our brains just are calibrated different. And whatever
natural variations.
You crossed the line.
I just want to be clear on those things of like, we have this like weird thing of putting things in disabilities and not disabilities, but disabilities, all they really are is social constructs of how it fits into us, is how do the disabilities fit in a social construct, and pedophilia,
compared to the average person.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Compartmentalization makes things easy
for
us to understand.
Yeah. But to sound very weird and shitty, we live in a society for the best that says you should not have sex with children. Great. So the people with that chemical makeup they're fucked. You know what I mean? Ostracized. So we would need to do that because there'd be hurt, and like sociopaths who kill people, Dexter type people, their chemical imbalance is like, I feel nothing when I murder. Well, guess what? If you lived in the King's Age when we needed a knight who could just slaughter a bunch of like Saxons coming to take us, you'd have been a king. If we lived in the age in the future where giant alien children came to kill us and the only way to kill them was to rape them, the pedophiles would be kings. You understand that way? They just don't live in the right time. That was a joke that hopefully you let it out of this. Who the hell knows? I don't know if that handed, but I don't know if that makes sense. You don't have to edit that out. I'm just kidding. I don't really care about any of this. But does that make sense what I'm saying, or do I just sound like a crazy person?
No, I totally agree.
Pedophiles are cool.
I may not endorse the idea that pedophiles had a great place in history.
No, in the future. I'm saying they may have one in the future when all of the children are bad. But I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Aside from the Renaissance. Yes. but I'm a Renaissance man. Okay.
Laughing.
We search for instant connections. So sports, religion, that's how humans behave. Like we're in a room full of strangers. We got to find the one thing we have in common. Otherwise we're going to be, off in the corner, shunned from the group. That's why I love talking to comedians, because we don't look at things like, labeling something as being evil and then that's just it. That person's evil. No, there's so much more to it. There's more nuance. We want to we question the surface value of it, and we can have a conversation with comics, whether you're from Seattle or New York or Atlanta or Cleveland or the UK, and talk about topics on this level because we share that like, no, there's more to it than what's on the outside.
Dude, and do you know what a lot of that comes from? I learned this as well. So when I was talking to this doctor about ADD, he was like, the most comedians have ADD. He goes, just going to let you know that. And he goes, because one of the major things about ADD is curiosity. It's this constant questioning and looking. And that, I think, is what a lot of comedians have in common, is we're constantly questioning everything. And I hate that this happened to me, but I was raised a Catholic and I became an atheist in about 8th grade. I remember I don't know if you guys went through a religious break.
Same time for me.
Yeah, right. Where you just
took me a little longer, but
I hear. Yeah, for me it was just religion broke it down, and then when religion failed, I went, okay, that means you got to question everything. And I hate to say this, but it was Incubus wrote a song called "Make Yourself," which is say what you want about Incubus, but this song hit me, and I went, you got to make yourself. You need to go through every brick in your body and inspect it and go, why is that there? And one of them became action figures, right? Like, I loved action figures, but I was like, as an adult, you got to stop collecting these. And then I went, why is that? And I started realizing it makes me happy to collect action figures. So I said, so I'm going to fucking do the shit out of that. And I did. And then other people when I started doing it, it was a lot more made fun of. Now it's a little more mainstream, probably maybe just in my bubble, but they do make figures for adults now. So it's like, it was a thing that was like, I was questioning. I was like, I couldn't get a date because they would see these toys in my room. So I'd have to take them all down, put them all back up when they would leave.
That's where 8th grade really killed that for me, where I was like, no more. And it all went away. No more Star Wars.
Too soon.
There is no such thing as right and wrong. There is just what we all agree on is best for everybody. And that is going to constantly evolve and change. And you have to be okay with that, especially like now that technology is moving faster, we are moving faster as a society. So you're going to have people that are like 10 years, for 10 years ago did a lot of horrible shit that may not necessarily have known was as horrible as they do now, as technology moves faster and faster. Right. I think, I don't know.
Right. It changes. I mean, you can look at the Christopher Columbus example. Like, 20, 30 years ago, we were like, Columbus Day, he discovered America. And there were a few people that were like, hey, this guy wasn't great. And now it shifted.
And then we look at the people who refuse to let go of Columbus and we're like, well, you're a racist. It's like, no, that's a 50-year-old man. Like, you got to understand, like, there is a part of society that is going to take a little bit longer to catch up on some of this stuff. And then there's part of my society that I'm like, I don't give a shit about Christopher Columbus. I never did. He discovered America. Great. That's a privilege. Someone allowed him to get on a boat and do a thing. We would have eventually got there anyway. It's like, I don't know. This could be really wrong, but it is something that kind of sticks in my head, is that like, race is just the first thing you can grab because it's the most obvious connecting factor, right? But you get 6 comedians in a room, they're going to bond way more than 6 people of the same race, right? So if I go into a room with a black guy, Native American, an Indian dude, and we're all comedians, we're going to go to the buffet together. If you get me in a room with 6 Italians, it's just going to be like, yeah, I don't know. I can't fucking, but society will go, put the Italians over there. Italians do this. And it's like, but you can't quantify the comedians or the kind people or the empathetic. You can't quantify it. It's not easy to see. You have to do investigations to find them. So like, I don't know if that kind of hits what I don't know if that's landing or making any sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
It's just like, it's an impossible thing to quantify groups because you kind of have to take a test to see where people land on those.
Yeah, it's easy, and the tide of history has to go the other way, where it's not even a thing anymore. Eventually,
right?
We've got to get through a lot of shit first. I always go back to just, we do the best with what we know, and so for some people that means oh, this person isn't like me, well, I have to get rid of them, and that's how they came up, that's how they know, that's their level of education, and they don't want to see anything beyond that. So I think ostracizing somebody for doing the best with what they know, there's that, and then there's also, and then you can ostracize somebody for refusing to learn more. I think that's more appropriate than like looking back in history or looking at somebody's old tweets and being like, hey, that's wrong, we're going to punish you now for that. Like, if you've obviously not learned, punish them for that, sure, but
you shouldn't
grow,
You shouldn't punish the iPhone 1 for not having a front-facing camera. You know what I mean? It was the first iPhone. So you grow and you learn. And like, to have learned is a privilege because you are allowed to have something in your life that set you on that path. You know what I mean? And even if someone, even to what you're saying, with someone being like, well, they're refusing to learn. It's like, no. They're still not. There's something that still hasn't gotten to them yet that allowed them to grow. Look at an alcoholic, right? You need rock bottom before you start to get sober. So some of these people need that, whatever rock bottom it is, before it hits them, that allows them to go, oh no, that makes sense now. Like right now, I will be honest, and I'll be completely, I don't mind being vulnerable and saying things that I'm wrong about, but where I have a hard time is gender fluidity as like a concept. And there's like a bunch of things I can get in there about. So I just keep diving into learning about like he and like male versus female. Like, to me, it still doesn't, like gay, transgender, all of that makes a ton of sense to me. But this idea of like, you want to be known as not he or she is a concept that I'm struggling with, of like, I got to figure that. And we can get into that if you want, but I don't really, it's not like a thing I care about, but I just haven't, I may look back on this in 10 years and go, yeah, Greg, you just didn't get it yet. Or I might look back in 10 years and go, yeah, they were all fucking crazy. I don't know. I'm just trying to be funny. But the reality is like, I'm looking at this point in my life now and seeing this might be where I'm stuck, and that's okay. I would never shit on someone or be mean to them because of that. But I look at those people who were like, they just don't see gay as an option. It's like, you're just putting dick in your ass. Fuck you. It's like, they just didn't get to the point in their life where they understood, or they couldn't get past their religious holdups or their sexual proclivities or any of that weird shit, right? But I don't ostracize them. I'll just try to love them for all the other things in their life that they are good at, or they do understand. You need, like, maybe that guy's a construction worker and he's building great buildings. Good. I'll love you for that. And when the other stuff comes, I'll try not to support it. But I'm not going to I think that guy has a better chance to be around people who can teach him, or, whatever, if it's, if things are true, then exiling these people, if that makes sense. And that's kind of how I feel about, like, I'm not a Trump supporter, but like, I have a lot of Republicans in my family, and I just try to just be around them and love them for all the other things and try to show them my point of view because I believe it's right or whatever. So it's like, don't ostracize people. It's not a good look.
Right.
I think it's better to bring people in than to push them aside.
Yeah, you can't force people. You're not going to get people on your side by ostracizing them. You gotta connect with them first, and then build.
It's my biggest problem. I'm just like, you're fucking stupid.
It's so easy
because it feels so good, and it's like you're like, well, you assume that people think the way you do, where you're like, because if someone called me stupid, I would try to be not as stupid.
Yeah,
but other people do the opposite. They're like, no, I'm doubling down.
Right.
No,
Dude,
it's bad.
Because what they know is they know they are not stupid. So then when you say they're stupid, they go, well, this guy's wrong about everything. And that's my big problem with calling Trump supporters racists, because most of them know they aren't. They may be doing some racist things. And a lot of that is like racial by proxy. It's like, they're just like, they do some things that are racist that aren't necessarily like hating people. It's just like,
it's relatively benign.
Right. Or like, like they push, even if it's like congressional, it's like, I think that some laws aren't, whatever. I don't want to get into that whole shit, but it's like, by calling them racist, they know they're not racist. So then they go, you think we're all racist. So if you're wrong about that, what else are you wrong about? And then nothing else you say will ever get through to them. When you start looking at people and treating them different, you don't give them the opportunity to beat your expectations. And then people also say, well, if you think this way about me, then maybe I am this way, which as a guy with ADD, I go, you think I'm retarded? Well, then maybe I am retarded. And then I start not believing in myself. So it's like, yes, some of these stereotypes do work to an extent, but when you start treating those stereotypes a lot of that way, you'll end up, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. And the science backs that up too. There've been plenty of experiments. Like they did an experiment, I think it was in the 60s, where they gave elementary school children a test, right? And then they took the test, and then they didn't even look at the results, but they told the teachers, they just picked 20% of the kids and said, those are the kids that did great on this test. They have the most potential. Randomly chose the kids. Right. And then so the teachers behaved differently around those kids. Right. And they had higher intelligence gains than the kids that they didn't treat that way, because they expected something different of the kids. So they behaved differently, they felt differently, they spoke to them differently, they gave them more honest and open feedback. They gave gave them more responsibility because they believed in them. So these kids started believing in themselves, because that's how
IQ tests work too.
Yeah.
With kids in confidence, we understand so little about psychology and how much we can influence people based on like placebo, in terms of psychology, not in medicine, but like, it's just weird how that happens. I thought I was stupid growing up when I was a kid, but then they had a psychological evaluation on me a couple times in elementary school, and they found out I was actually really smart. And then the rest of my life, no, actually, I didn't know that at the time. My parents told me in like 7th or 8th grade. And that's when I started not caring more about my own intellect rather than not caring about anything. And then I started doing better at almost everything. It was weird. It just had a profound effect on me.
The same thing happened in comedy with me, where I was like, well, I don't have a lot of followers, so I'm not good. And then I would just be like, I'd go on stage and I'd bomb a little bit more. And then once I got a writing job because someone believed in me, I started killing on stage, but it was a 2-day difference. But it was just the confidence. You need that confidence to believe. And what I say to every comedian is, you need to look for those confidence builders, not in the necessarily things that you'll look like. If you're a comedian, you go, I don't have a late night credit, I don't have a half hour, I'm not good at this. And you just go, no. Look at it in a different way. Are you right? Like a joke you wanted to figure out. Did you figure it out? Write that on your board. Are you getting laughs? Be scientific about it. Write down these slight goals and count those as wins, not the things you don't have. Every comedian is like, well, I don't have a Netflix special, I guess I suck. And it's like, no, man, a lot of shitty comedians have Netflix specials. But think about what you can do and write those. You have to write down goals and wins. Write down your goals and try to cross them off, but then write down your wins. And your wins will be so long. And you will look at the goals and you'll go, fuck, it doesn't match out, but I am still winning. So and then your goals board one day, you'll just cross everything off in one day. That's what happens in comedy. It was like, Dude, my goals board from 2018 had a ton of things. I didn't cross a single thing off. In 3 months in 2020, I hit 80% of them. It all just came, but it was like out of fucking nowhere. But if I wasn't relying on that wins board, I would have believed I wasn't good at this. And like, you have to look at that. Like, if you look at me as a comedian, you look at my Twitter followers, you look at my Instagram followers, I would go, I guess I'm not good. And I'm not an egotistical person, but I think a lot of people that I'm around I think I'm a respected guy in my circles. And it's like, why didn't I count any of that? Why didn't I count any of these, like, comedians that I love who've taken me on the road or have taken me on their wing? It's like, it's an important thing. I'm very good at what I'm trying to tell you. No.
Yeah. Steve just came out as smart, and then
yeah.
Sorry, guys, it was very difficult for me. But
you have to be kind to yourself, though, in this business. We're not big enough to cut ourselves down. We think we can just chop ourselves. It's like, you're not big enough to do that, dude. Allow yourself some confidence in the belief. Don't be an arrogant asshole, but know what you're good at. Know your strengths, and stop trying to be good at shit you're not good at, right? Like, I'm not a guy who can sit and work at a computer. Well, and stop. Write the way you write. Walk around the block. Write those things down. Stop trying to be Mr. fucking Instagram famous. If you could be doing something else, do that shit. Get good at that shit, because that's what you have fun doing. It's going to be way easier for you in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that we tend to forget very easily. I mean, you focus on all the things that aren't working when, you've gotten to where you are. Like, you've gotten through all the things. You start there and then work from there. That's
homophobia.
Yeah, so homophobia.
Laughing.
And I think kind of what we talk about, just from a general overarching theme, going back to the labels like evil or good or bad or racist or whatever. I think that comes with a lack of understanding and a lack of, like, not being willing to understand what's really going on. And I think homophobia is one of those things, or just like, homosexuality now is more widely accepted, at least in America, than it isn't. And that's a new development over the last couple of decades. Mm-hmm. So, we've got to point out the things that are wrong, not in a way like you have the bit from your album. I mean, you have like 3 straight tracks on your album about it. The Amazing Gravestone, definitely check it out. It's a great listen. It's like 45 minutes. I really enjoyed listening to the whole thing. But I loved, and I listened to this and I thought, oh, we have to talk about this, just because the way you weave it, like it's almost like a dissertation. Like, you have your thesis and then you have all these supporting details. You have like a counter argument in there. It's a really well thought out bit. So before we talk about it, and you haven't, as the listener, haven't listened to it, I figured let's play a clip from it, and then we'll kind of talk about how it came to be and how you found it funny and how you were able to connect that with the audience.
Like gay people?
Oh God,
he loves them. I can prove it.
So awkward.
He keeps making them. That's the end of my argument. Do you know who God hates? The dinosaurs. Why is no one talking about how much God hates the dinosaurs? He threw a rock at them at 1,000 miles an hour. Yeah, he was like, see them, you're out of here. And he skipped a stone across the universe. Now they're all dead. Yeah, God hates the dinosaurs. People from Atlantis. Crystal Clear Pepsi. Blockbuster Video. All of that. He shut it down. If God hated gay people, we would not have gay bars. No. We'd have gay museums. And that's how you would have to learn about gay people. You'd have to go into New York City. They'd take you on a tour. Like, this is Elton John. That's Liberace. There's your cousin Larry. You can get a little Tom Cruise in the gift shop. And that would be it. But he loves them. It's just homophobia. And I don't understand homophobia, okay? Because I've been in a relationship for 10 years. The one thing I know is that if gay was a choice, I would choose. One thing I got out of that. Yeah, nothing against women. I love you. You're beautiful. You're smart. You're soft. You smell good. But I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. 90% of the time. 90. When I come home drunk, my girlfriend's like, are you drunk? Get in the room. Or whatever she's saying. I'm not listening. But when I come home drunk, my roommate Anthony is like, are you drunk? You want to get high and watch Star Wars? I'm like, yes! Yes, you nailed it! I don't have my coat and you're crushing it. I want to fuck that. That's the dream. He's little, he's hairy, we'll eat carbs, no one will cry about it. I'll bite him on the butt, like, get out of here! But I can't, because I'm straight. It sucks.
Oh, that was really hard.
That's the common thing that I hear from comics when we play their clips. It's like, well, I would hope that it's hard to listen to just because like you've grown as a performer since then. I listened to sets from like right before the pandemic and I'm like, whoa.
Dude, trust me, that was really good. I loved that.
Yeah.
Just so
wow. That's really, thank you.
You're super
Christ,
funny.
I needed that.
No, you're super funny. But you're hypercritical of yourself, which is good because that's what makes you funnier, and that's why you're already so funny.
Pushes growth.
Because I'm like the same way where I'm like super hypercritical, but people are like, no, you're funny. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then you realize like, oh yeah, I'm just always self-correcting and that's what makes you better. So it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's also weird. I just two quick things is that last night I watched, I think it's called Song Exploder. It's a Netflix show. It was a podcast where they go over music with the artists. They played Stipe from REM. They played him the demo of Losing My Religion. And you can see him physically being like, please turn this off. I hate this. And you go, dude, that's Losing My Religion. That's one of the greatest songs in American history. Maybe. I don't know. I love that song. But I mean,
it is though. You're right.
But it's like, you get that way too, like even you, the singer from REM, can't listen to their own shit. So it was a little bit nice.
A lot of movie stars don't watch their own films. They hate watching themselves on film, even though they're classics.
Right. But it is something we should be doing if you want to get better, to be like, you should. Like, I actually think that was good for me to listen to because since we've been in quarantine, I forgot about the song rhythm I would do sometimes with bits, where what I like to do sometimes with bits is like, I went to the store and there was this guy. Like, it becomes almost like I like to have fun with the words when I'm doing stand-up, where I think that what I hate about everyone who's like, do a joke for a year, put it on an album, be done. You never get to really know a bit so well that you can be so intricate with the sounds that you're making.
Yeah.
Have fun with the sounds. And that I think is a part of comedy that a lot of like new comics don't realize is a thing. It's like, yes, you wrote a great bit. Well, now you need to become a great performer and you need to look at almost every syllable. It's like, how are you doing this syllable? Like, is it is it fun? It's just another level of fun you get to have. Is like just talking is fun. Look how I'm talking now. It's fun to talk like this, as opposed to being like, hey, everybody. It's like a lot of comedians get like they don't do the karaoke or the song versions of their bits, which I think is like, oh man.
That was the first thing I noticed about that bit I was listening to was your inflection was like super good. It was like just a roller coaster, and that's what really reels people in. And it's very it pulls people in.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you saying that. It is something I know I just talked about it, but I am a little self-conscious sometimes that joke is old. To the fact that when I first started doing it, just saying that I would choose to be gay on stage would turn crowds on me. Immediately. They would just, you a fag. And I would get that a lot. They'd be like, you just a fag trying to say, I'm like, no, man. And to expand on that bit is something I've been trying to work on, which is I really do believe is that I don't believe in gay. What that means is it is a label that I understand that gay people, you should grab a label because you've been fucked. People have been fucking you, and you need to grab a label and hold on to it and say, no, I am this. But the reality, what I don't like is that when you choose a label for anything, you then feel like you need to stick to it. And what I'm saying to that is, if I say I'm straight, if I see a man, what I say is I don't say I'm straight. I just say that I haven't yet met a man I want to have sex with. But that I might walk into a room and go, I want to fuck this guy. And I should allow myself to be okay with that. And I met a lesbian who was a very good friend of mine who found a man attractive. And she was like, I don't know what to do because I'm in the gay community very strong. And if they hear this, they will be mad. And I was straight edge for a very long time. And when you become straight edge, it becomes being a thing where it works against you in the way of your straight edge friends are like, if you break edge, you're not our friend anymore. And I feel that way with any kind of label is all it does is then, even if you're proud of it, it doesn't allow you to leave that label or to explore. And like straight pride, not straight pride, but being like, I'm straight is like, hey man, you don't know what fun you might be missing out on. You know what I mean? Like if you eat a sandwich you don't like, you just put something in your mouth you didn't love. But like, yeah, I mean, maybe just sucking a dick, it might not be something you're into, but it could be just a way to spend an evening that is different than what you did yesterday, right? But a straight guy's like, no, get it out of there. It's like,
yeah,
that's mental. That's when you work. Sorry, man, just one little tiny piece on this, but like when you work in a hospital, when I worked in an ER, the thing I didn't expect to be doing a lot was touching old man's penises. So, but you have to pick up their penis and put it in a thing so that they can pee into it, or you have to hold it so they can, so you have to do a lot of old man penis work. It's just part of the job. But as a straight guy, if there's a naked man, you go, no. And it's like, man, that's just some more penis work. Do some penis work. It's like, fuck it. It's like, it shouldn't be negative. It should at least be 0. Let it be 0 where you don't get anything from it. But don't let it be negative where it's like, it's like, man, just tuck it, just touch it. It's not going to hurt you. Fuck it.
Right.
Leave yourself open to you could just find enjoyment in this, and it doesn't change who you are as a person.
Well, how would you deal with people who are like, oh, that's gay. You're just gay. Like, how did you?
So at first I would go, maybe I am gay. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just too crazy and this is bad. And then I started to think, no, I'm on stage. They are not. These aren't people who are big thinkers. Greg, you have to believe you're a big thinker. And even if you're wrong, you're funny. So who cares? It doesn't matter. Right and wrong doesn't matter in this situation. And then what I started doing was calling them out, right? What I ended up doing was writing a joke that I think it's on the album. I don't even know, was my defense to them. And so what I would do is, what I sometimes will be is like, get a finger in your butt. It doesn't change who you are. And people go, nah, man, that's gay. And I go, sticking a finger in your butt, you're now like, no, I'm attracted to you emotionally. Like that's like gay isn't a sexual act. Gay is being attracted to the same sex emotionally and wanting to spend time and wanting to make love to that person. Sticking a piece of plastic in your butthole doesn't change that outlook. So stop being afraid of it. You know what I mean? So it's like, so then I started calling those people out and being like, yo, why are you so afraid of being gay? What do you think's going to happen if you have, it's like, if you, and here's the joke that I would do to these people is I would say, if you don't like dick because you're not gay. So if you it's not like you're going to become gay and now you're like, I hate all these dicks, but I got to suck them because I'm gay. No, the minute you're gay, you're like, give me all the dicks. I love the dicks. So stop being afraid of being gay, because when you are, it's going to be great for you. Right.
The truth will set you free.
Really. And I hate the thing of people who go, if they're homophobic, they probably are just secretly gay. Because the reality is, yes, sure, that is happening sometimes. But it would always happen in, I was raised in like Newark, New Jersey, which was a very like, I hate to say ghetto, but that's the word it was. It's like we were poor people, and being gay, you were looked down upon as being weak. And so in a lot of people's minds growing up, that gay meant weak. Right. And so addressing that with those people was huge. It was like, gay doesn't make you weak. There's a lot of gay people in prison who, are there for doing not weak things, murdering people and shit like that. So it's like none of that shit makes you addressing those type of things with those people.
A lot of myths about masculinity.
Absolutely.
About the irony of people being like very insecure about homosexuality. So it's like, no, you're being weak right now.
1000% true.
Yeah.
That is a weakness, because once you start accepting that stuff, it makes you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of the things that and that's when I learned about comedy. It was huge. The things you're ashamed of in the world are what make you strong in comedy, right? What I was ashamed of was my ADD, but being an ADD guy, speaking a million miles an hour, that's what makes me funny. Having those thoughts is what makes me strong. Being ADD makes me quick on my feet. All of the things you're afraid to talk about, all of the things that you're like, this is what makes me, this is what I'm scared of, are the things you need to grab on and show the world, because those people are just too scared to talk about it. And you accepting it is what will make you different. And what makes you different is what makes a good comic, is being a snowflake. We're all snowflakes, brother.
Yeah. And that, I mean, you prove it with this bit too. I mean, you take a different angle than most comics do. I mean, you've already covered a couple of them. Like, oh, if you're homophobic, that means you are gay. You're just covering it up. Or, you know, oh, you got to be this macho guy. Like, maybe you'll like it.
Right.
But
God
you
hates
take the
gays.
angle.
So fun. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you take the angle of like, well, I would choose that. If it were a choice, I would choose that.
Right.
And then the God thing, like, God doesn't hate gay people, but here's something that he does hate, and here are my supporting details as to why.
Yeah.
You lean into that vulnerability of like, I would choose it, and then you make your follow-up points, which is,
and the real line in that thing was the number is that, which I say is like, bisexual is clearly the best option, right? You can get both, you know, and it's, you know, I say the joke, but it's like, you go into a buffet and if you don't eat meat, you get less options. If you walk into a party and you can't fuck half of the people in there, that's less people to fuck. And I love to fuck. Yeah. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's just like, why would we look down on people who are clearly superpowered? They can put any of those things in their mouth. And it's like, that's a great thing. Now I'm just doing the bit kind of, but yeah, I mean, like gay was such an easy thing to shut down on stage as being like, that was like, I was almost like, this bit is almost too easy because it's so clearly silly that people would be against this, you know?
Right. What made you start that bit anyway? Like how did that like get conceived in your mind?
So I don't know if I do this on stage or did, but it's a story that is real. I had a dream a long time ago. It was when I was working at Fridays that I had sex with, it was Gary. I always say Gary Shandling because people know it, but it wasn't. It was Gary Gulman. I hope this doesn't get out. I was having sex with a woman, and then it was Gary Gulman. And I was like, Greg, are you gay? You had sex with Gary Gulman in your sleep? This is when Torgasm
I
was
would have sex
too.
with Gary Gulman.
Yeah, dude.
We all would have sex with Gary Gulman.
Jewish stallion.
So tall, so sleek.
Right. I want him to use his vocabulary, like talk dirty to me in that vocab.
Yeah. I had that dream, and I told my friend Dave, I was like, dude, I think I'm gay. I had this dream. And he said, come with me. We went in the bathroom. And I swear to God, he opened his pants and he showed me his dick. And he went, touch it, do something with it, grab it, jerk it, do something. And I went, no. And he went, then fuck you. Table 8 needs drinks. And it was
that's hilarious.
So simple to me. You get so afraid of being gay that you never address what gay really is. So you never go, Greg, are you attracted to men? And I went, well, 99% of the time I'm not. Okay, so shut the fuck up, right? So like, once I realized I wasn't gay, I went, I can do anything now because this is the thing I know I'm not. And if I am, I'm okay with it. So it was this whole thing that now it gave me so when I went on stage with that bit, it was because I had done something that a lot of people in the crowd hasn't done, which was truly investigated my feelings, my real feelings, and accepted what they would be if they were true. And when you have that real confidence in something, you can defend it. You can say anything, because what people don't like, if you go on stage and you kind of don't know how you feel about something, people can poke holes and you'll go, fuck, maybe you're right. But it's like, no, man, I put a dick in my face and nothing happened. So I can talk about this all day because I'm not gay. Like, I just know I'm not. And the reality is, I say this, like, it's like I'm like an alcoholic. I don't know what I'll be tomorrow, but today I'm just yet to meet a penis that I've wanted to suck. And the reality is I'm married now too. So it's like, even if I find what I want to suck, I got to get a permission slip. She's got to sign a bunch of forms. Like I can't just suck it anymore. But I mean, I will tell you that if my wife ever gets hit by a car or like is shot in the night by some mysterious person, I'm going to jerk a guy off. I'm going to do it. I don't care if I'm into it or not. I'm just going to be like, hey, you want a free hand job? Gay friend of mine. I just want to know what'll happen. I'll just do it and see what happens.
I've touched all kinds of old man penis. Let's bring it on.
Yeah,
I'm an expert.
I want to do it in a way for pleasure, not in a way that I'm sticking something into it.
You know what's hilarious is I'm in my apartment with headphones on, so I'm just talking to the walls right now, and all my neighbors are like, what the fuck is he talking about?
That's great. It's so great. And that's my big tip for people who want to address things in comedy. It's like, don't just come up with the line in the joke. Know the topic so well that if someone is going to heckle you, you have 50 comebacks for it. Yeah. And most of that joke came from me defending that bit on stage. It was like, it started with gay, and then someone went, well, God hates gays. And I went, really? God hates gay, then why are they still coming? Why are we still making? You can end Italian people. If all Italy blows up and all the Italian people die, there's no more Italians. If you kill all the gays still keep coming. You know, it's like their God is still making them, dude. So like, what are you talking about? And also, the heckle that I did get was, well, God makes killers, God makes pedophiles. And I went, yeah, well, I don't believe in God. But I then went, I would believe that God loves them too. You know what I mean? Like, and then my dad, who's very Catholic, said, God doesn't hate people, he hates an act. That was the thing. He was trying, like me and my dad get in a very big argument about religion. And his whole thing is like, no, God doesn't approve of gay, but he loves everyone. He just doesn't like, if you steal, he doesn't hate you. He hates that you stole. And I also say God doesn't hate the act of being gay because it hurts no one and it makes no sense. It's not even in the 10 Commandments. But also, God doesn't exist. So that's what it always comes down to. It's like, oh yeah, it's just bullshit anyway. But I have to play by his rules when we have the Catholic argument. But yeah, no, God doesn't. It's like God doesn't exist. And if he did, there's no evidence to support that he doesn't like gay people.
So one thing that people don't understand is when you do that when you plug in the idea that under the assumption that God is real, people are like, well, why are you even, if you don't believe in God, then why are you? And it's like, no, I'm playing by your rules right now. Yeah. So you can at least see it under your logic.
Yeah.
Like, duh.
I'm so good at handling a ball that I'll play basketball with you and still dunk on you. That's just kind of how I'm just going to play your game and fucking jam on you in your own game. And right. So, yeah, I mean, I do that with my dad. My dad is like ridiculous. I'm sorry. When we had this conversation, my dad does this. I go, no, I don't believe in God. And he goes, well, do you believe in love? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, God is love. So you believe in God. And I went, what gymnastics you just pulled to like, I was like, and then I went, Dad, do you see what you did? And then he does this move where he grabs a stranger in the restaurant next to us and goes, here, my son just said he doesn't even love God. And they go, bad son. He goes, see, she agrees. And they go, hey, you just made that woman feel very awkward. And she wasn't going to pull out her religious views in front of you because you just grabbed her.
Greg, when you left, you should have like gotten to the door, opened it up, and then turned around and been like, Dad, I got you. And then you just walk out.
Yeah. It's another thing that I get mad about is as like being in New York and being around a lot of liberals, and I am a liberal person for the most part. Them hating Trump supporters makes me so mad because they go, well, we don't agree with what they do, and their tenets are racist and sexist and all this. And I go, I'm an atheist. I've had to deal with religious people my entire life, and you learn to love them. Right. It's like, no, well, God is different. I go, God is no different. Okay. He has been doing sexism and racism and all of that shit and like wars. Well, so you passed a few bad laws? Yeah. The Crusades. Okay. So if I can deal with people who follow what the Crusades did, you can love your uncle on Thanksgiving.
Too soon.
I think part of the fact that more being gay is more widely accepted too goes into like, no, that's my brother you're talking about, or that's my, right. That's my cousin, and they're a great person, and so you put it on that personal level and kind of dive underneath the label and see the actual human being there. Like that is how. That's how we get through to people who aren't like us. Is right. Put it on their like the human level.
So just do the math. Who is gay hurting? No one at all. Where I'm being vulnerable, and the thing I don't fully understand yet is a lot of this like gender fluidity. I don't know if it's fluidity. I don't know the right words in a lot of this, so I apologize. But it's like people who don't identify as he or she. And I don't know anyone yet who does this, so I haven't been able to sit and talk to someone yet. And I've done a bunch of reading on it, and I'm still not there because with gay, you're not asking anyone to change anything. But with this stuff, it's like you're asking me to change the way I talk, and which isn't like it's not a big deal, but you are, like you're trying to break a system that we already have in place. And I do think a lot of systems need to be broken. So this is where I get to that of like, all right, I don't know how I feel about this yet because we're creating a third option when I don't even believe in gender, because they say like sexuality. So there's gender and there's sex. And stop me if you know more than me about this stuff, but like sex is the genetics, how you're born. That's one thing. So gender is developed by society. This is what gender rules are. Men do more of this, women do more of that. And so people say, well, I don't identify as either, so I'm a new thing. And I go, yeah, but no one identifies as either. I don't identify as a child, and everything I do is collecting action figures, like comic books and toys and all this. And it's like, so I'm still having a hard time like finding my ground on this. And also if I call you, now with trans is different, right? So if you are trans and you identify as a woman, great. I don't even care if you have the surgery or don't. I will call you what you choose. It's fine. But the idea of like, you have to call me neither is like, I got to do this whole other thing, which I don't know if I subscribe to yet. And you're forcing me to subscribe to this new thing. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's still shaky ground for me to like fully understand and fully be like, not on board with, but like, I am worried that whenever you're dealing in categories that are man-made, that now we're like, well, these are man-made categories. So like, so it's not, you weren't born that way. Whereas gay is, you're born this way. You're not born this way. And I don't think you could not be born that way. You can choose to be gay, and I'm 1,000% okay with that. But this idea of someone is choosing to not be part of the system, which is man-made anyway, which is selection of gender, is that something I'm into? Which is like, I'm not that into it because I don't like these systems either, but I play by some of these rules already. But if someone came up to me and they were like, I don't identify as a male or female, you have to call me they, I'm going to tell them straight up, I will do the best I can, but please don't be upset if I fuck this up. That's, and I used to live with a guy named Mad Dog, and he decided not to go by Mad Dog anymore. And
yep. I know James.
Yeah. And so and James, I love James, but I would still call him Mad Dog. And he was okay. He was like, yeah, okay, you fuck it up, but please try to call me James. And I would go, yeah. So if that was hard for me, the gender thing is a little tricky, but back into the reality is in my life currently, I'm yet to even meet someone, it just could be randomly that actually this was that I have to have this conversation with. So, I'm still figuring this out is what I'm. So, and by figuring it out, it's figuring it out for myself. I'm not saying I'm figuring out whether it's right or wrong. I'm saying I'm figuring out where I stand on all of, I don't know. I just figuring it out for myself, if that makes sense.
We all are. I mean, that's the thing is, if when we talk in absolutes, that costs us the ability, even the option to learn more. It's like, no, this is the way it is, and that's it. And it's like, okay. I mean, that's where you're going to live now, but you have no other options now. You've limited yourself. And
it's interesting because I actually did just someone recently from the comedy community here in Cleveland came out as what we're talking about, basically, like where not only do they want to be referred to as they, them, but they changed their name too, to a very unconventional name. And that I found more difficult because it just seemed silly to me. And like, I don't mean it's silly. I just mean it sounds, it almost makes you want to laugh when you say it because it's such a weird name. And that's what I'm having difficulty with, not just accepting their sexuality, because that is easily accepted. That is not the problem. It's just the literal language, getting accustomed to the language.
Yeah. And it's a trick. I mean, it's a very hard thing is the they, them thing is you're breaking my mind in a way that I have to now go back and learn a thing that is like, I know that just seems lazy, but it's like, well, I got to relearn how to talk or else I've offended you. And it's like, that's hard. I remember when I first started talking, I remember Z and Zay started coming out and I was like, well, I'm more on board with that than they and them, because I will say I've had people talking about a friend who came out who was they and them. And they were like, oh, I was talking to them the other day. And I was like, who? And they were like, Chris or whatever. And I was like, and who else? And they're like, no, just them. And I'm like, this doesn't work. Them is multiple. We're all pretty sure that it's most of the time multiple. To that point, and I've been in this situation before, in Connecticut, they opened up a place called G's Burger. GS Burger. Okay. And they served two things. The G's Burger, which was a burger filled with cheese. And they also had cheeseburgers, which was a burger that had cheese on it. And I remember I was one of their first customers. I walked in and I went, I'll have a cheeseburger. And they went, a cheeseburger? And I went, this doesn't work. You need to change cheeseburger and cheeseburger because there's no way. This is going to be confusing forever.
Yeah, just call the cheeseburger the classic.
Yeah, right. And it's so the they them thing is something I'm like I'm actually more okay with a silly name because my wife has a silly name. Her name is Tita, and everyone calls her Tina. And I go, yeah, I know, I got them silly ass wife. But yeah, so like it's the they them thing, and I just don't, because it's a society construct. That's where I have the issue, because it's not a thing you're necessarily, because gender, from what I'm reading, and I'd love to be corrected, gender is a society construct. Sex is not. So, and gender is the thing that they them lives in. It's they want to be referred to as their gender, not their sex.
What's interesting is
human
sex is where the difference between sexes is also not binary. It's usually binary, but sometimes it isn't. And it's also non-binary in different ways from what if I'm remembering correctly, because I did watch an explanation of it on a very scientific level, like, you know, in terms of like how chromosomes work and how your brain chemistry works and all these other things. But like, or like, you know, your external sex organs or whatever you want to call it, like all these different ways that you can be not one or the other. So it's like, that's what Ben Shapiro needs to have his fucking face shoved into.
Yeah. It's also like, I'm also not, it's like, that's funny. It's like, I'm not Ben Shapiro, but it also comes back to that rule of like, yeah, this is me having a philosophical talk, but on a real talk, if I met someone who said this, I would treat them with so much love and try to make them feel comfortable, because that's who I am as a fucking person. So like, that's the reality. And if someone said like, you don't acknowledge who I am as existing, it's like, no, that's crazy. There's just one part of you that I'm not sure how mentally it just isn't locking and sinking yet, like in that world. But like, I love your jeans, I love your jokes, I love who you are, I'll say whatever you want, just don't hate me. Like, I will do, fun fact, went into a coffee shop the other day, guy looks at me, he goes, you got a mask on, pussy? I took my mask off, because that's how much of a, I have asthma, I might die because I may have just gotten COVID, but I'm such a people fucking person that I'm willing to risk my life for COVID. It's like, yeah, I will do the best to make you feel comfortable. But there is this weird thing too that I think my mind goes to, which is with the they them, I wonder, I go, well, is this a thing that you just don't fully grasp we're all going through as well? And maybe I need to talk to you and be like, hey, you don't identify as that gender, but reality is no one really identifies as a gender constructually. I do a lot of things that women do. I was the first, I cried on a date. I cried, the movie Click. I went on a date with a girl who saw the Adam Sandler movie Click. I cried my eyes out, and this girl called me, I hate to say, she called me an FAG. She was like, and we never went on a date again. It's like, there are a lot of feminine society things that no one syncs 100% with. So I do wonder, is this a thing that you just don't sync with yet? And maybe you just think that, oh, this is what I am. And the reality is no, maybe you just need to understand that we're all going through that as well. Right. I definitely don't agree with, not that I don't agree with, but it's like the thing of like putting kids on medications because of a lot of this stuff is, I'm not saying I do or don't agree with it. I'm saying it's a tricky fucking thing to be through, because in 8th grade, I didn't know what the fuck I was. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I was gay for a very long time because I did all these things that were gay. But I like Barbara Streisand. I was very into theater.
I was not expecting that.
No, but it's like a lot of these things that were told to me were gay, I loved. But the reality is, not till I had a penis put in my face that I went, oh, like I'm not. Also, I have jerked off in pornography to men with great abs and giant dicks fucking women, and sometimes it gets me. So I'm not 100%, but you don't know how gay I'm not. Like, I don't even know how, like, I've been in, so it's like, if I had to make that choice, it's a very hard choice. So I guess what I'm saying is, sorry, if you had to have a surgery, if you were gay, I would definitely be like, shit, I should fill this out because I've definitely had a lot of gay tendencies. But you don't have to, you can just, so that's what when those children are going through that, I go, hey, is this real, or are you just having some of these tendencies that we all kind of go through? And I'm not saying gay or not, but I'm saying like gender understanding of who you are. And as a kid, you don't know that. So I'm like, I'm not saying do or don't, but I'm saying we need to proceed with caution with this, just to understand what we're doing. Also, again, I'm a comedian. Had a semester of community college. I don't know, my ass from my elbow, but comedians are good at questions, not answers. It's just a rule I believe. Don't come to us for answers. Just come to us for good questions, because we'll poke shit, but we're not smart enough to tell you exactly how it works.
Right. This bit and what we've been talking about, the general theme seems to be the oversimplification that is part of our societal construct. And I mean, that's why I think the bit resonates, is because you poke at that. You don't deliver an answer, but you poke at it in a lot of different ways, that it's like, no, it's more than just this one thing. Like, I think that's such a valuable tool to use, especially as things get more and more complicated, is because they will continue to get more and more complicated, especially as more and more people get connected. Now we're having all these new perspectives and these new voices in the conversation, where it's like, to say that, oh, you're gay, that means this, or to say that, oh, you're homophobic, that means this. You equally like poke at both of those constructs in a way that's very like,
yeah, I mean,
layered.
Societal categories are stupid. No one will ever fit into societal categories. Even when we say they're gay, straight, this or that, like, you're white. That's even weird, because I'm like, well, I'm Italian. Italians aren't white. And it's like, well, then it's like, you can break any societal kind of category. And so that's where I get like, if we start making societal categories like hard-lined things, it's a problem.
Well, yeah, because some Italians are less white than others.
Anthony DeVito, my best friend from my town, that man looks like Jesus. He looks like a brown European. No, like, he looks like he's from Pakistan. Like, and he is same amount of Italian I am, from the same fucking town.
You crossed the line.
What is the thing that makes you laugh the most about the idea of homophobia?
What makes me laugh the most about homophobia is that people are afraid of penises. And everyone's got, it's like, you're afraid of a penis? You should be afraid of a gun. You should be afraid
Women
of
are less afraid of penises than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
women are weak.
Yeah.
That little girl is less afraid of a penis than you are. But it's that's going back to making yourself. It's people have bricks that they've laid in their building that is what they are, that they haven't fully checked. So with what I like to do in comedy, which might sound pretentious, but it's like, if I could do this, is just offer people fact checks on things they've always just believed. And I think a lot of Seinfeld even does that with like, with like, what, peas aren't peeing, or whatever the fuck he's doing. But like, that's something I would like to do, is like, hey, what is something you hold dear to you that is fucking wild? And then you look at it and you go, oh, that's not that bad. That's weird that I do that. It's like action figure collecting to me. It's like, people look at adults who collect action figures and go, that's weird. And you go, no, it brings me joy. Why?
I identify as an Imperial probe droid. It's right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, but it's like, the action figure thing is so fun to me, because it's like, it's just something that brings me. Why are adults told to stop having an imagination, stop playing? As a comedian, you need to be playing. When I set action figures up, I'm thinking of stories. When I think of stories, it takes me somewhere else. And I'm a great writer, because I still have my imagination, and you're still making it better. And so this idea of like, get rid of like, no, man, whatever makes you happy, do it. As long as you're not hurting anyone else around you, just do that shit.
Yeah.
That's such
play is the one thing that I think is the key of creativity, is you have to play, be silly, or else you're not going to get anywhere.
You're not. Playing allows me to write dialogue better, because I'm doing dialogue runs with Spider-Man and Batman. Why are they together? Why are they hanging out? Here's what they're saying to each other. Sorry, Dave, hit me up. What'd you say?
No, I was just going to say going back to what you said about if you're an adult, you can't play with toys. You can't use your imagination. The irony of that is that this whole construct, this whole capitalism, democracy, like the value of the dollar, it's all imagined. It's all made up. So you're literally trying to condition me out of like what you've imagined is real already. That's so funny to me. I'm with you. We're all playing, dog. We're all playing in the world of life. Yeah. So who says Batman and Spider-Man can't come together?
Unrelated, but I'm super self-conscious still of, how I have my headphones on, and like, I was just like, yeah, women are weak. And then that's all my neighbors heard. Or I said, they're not afraid of touching dicks. Like, it's all out of context. They couldn't hear you laughing.
Oh, that's even better.
Dude, I forgot. I don't know where you can hear it, but one of my favorite Colin Quinn jokes, I'm going to murder it, but it's like when you're like, he's talking about how you're talking to somebody and you're in a restaurant and they're like, so I said to him, fuck you, you rapist. And it's like all of a sudden just people are looking at him, pointing at you like, fuck you, you rapist. He's like, whoa, dude, hold that story. I don't know the bit, but it's like, I've been in that situation so many times where like people are reenacting what they said to someone else. It just looks like they're saying it to me. It's like, oh, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. When I lived in New York, I used to take like one sentence that I heard out of context, like through a phone conversation, someone walking by me or someone on the train. And then I would like just free write about that. Like what else could be true about this person? Like what else is going on there?
That's how you write good dialogue too, or some people tell you to listen to conversations so that you can kind of pick up on how real conversations happen to make it more realistic.
That is one of the main reasons I write in a coffee shop, because free will only allow me to come up with the thoughts that are already in my brain and or a nature and nurture. But if I'm in a coffee shop, something random, you have to introduce randomness into your life. So I can overhear someone say something crazy, which will then bounce my free will machine around or the pinball thing in my machine. So it's like, oh, now I'm going to a different direction because there was an outside stimulus that pushed me there. And it's like, I always try to be around people, around chaos as to, mess with the pinball that's in my head.
That's why I don't sit down to write unless I'm being introduced to stimuli around me, where I call it raw materials, where you need those raw materials. I'm not good at just using my brain to come up with things, or at least it's not as effective. And I think that's going back to ADD too, where I think that people with ADD are good with creativity because they're taking disparate ideas and combining them very easily. That's what people with ADD do, or at least according to like a psychologist I read that wrote an article about ADD. And that's why people with ADD do have a creative tendency.
Since this has happened, I've been, I'll just set my camera up and then I'll have like a couple bullet points and then I'll just talk and try to find ways to connect them all together. And sometimes I'll like a few days ago, I did it for 50 minutes and it felt like 20 minutes. And eventually, like once I connect the first idea, the last idea, then I shut it down. I might get like one or two good jokes out of it or ideas for premises, but I find that it's more effective to write that way rather than sitting down and saying, all right, let's write some comedy. That doesn't work.
What I just do the same move is any kind of have an idea. I put it I just put the slight idea in a notes thing. I don't try to sit and write it. And then I will walk around with those ideas. I have a notepad in my shower. I bought like this, it's like a pencil that you can write in the shower because that's where a lot of my thoughts are. And then I walk with the ideas and and I'll just try to add notes to them. And then on Friday, I will sit for an hour and go, okay, time to think about these things for real. And I'll do I think George Carlin method is I'll take one hit of weed, one tiny hit, which will get me not too high. If I get too high,
Mrs. Swan.
Just a little daddy tick, little one hit. And then it allows me to get a little weird. And then I'll write everything down. And then I'll go to a third pass, which is, okay, refine, edit, cut, and shit like that.
Right. It helps you get into a different frame of mind. So it's like essentially you're the same person, but it's a different perspective.
Right. I think that a little extra dopamine also helps improve your mood. And when your mood is improved, I think your brain just functions better.
Right.
Yes.
And the value of humor at work.
Can I hit you with, this was one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got in comedy in my life. I was talking to my therapist and I was like, I don't understand why I can't sit and write. And she was like, well, when do you write? I go, well, I write either when I come up with, she goes, when do you come up with your best stuff? It's like, when I'm talking to people, making them laugh, or I'm on stage, comes out with that stuff or whatever. And she's like, but I'm like, as soon as I sit down at that computer, I can't come up with anything. And so she said to me, I'm sorry, and you should know this before what she had said to me is we talked about how I'm constantly being mean to myself. And she said, what you need to do is name that guy. Name the guy who's being mean to you. I named him Larry. So every time I go, you're not funny enough, you're not good. She says, hey, talk to Larry. And I go, hey, Larry, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But I'm not going to listen to you right now. And understand. And once it's kind of like meditation. Once you start realizing that's Larry talking, you can see him because Larry will whisper at you. He'll go, you're not good enough.
Is she secretly sabotaging you into schizophrenia?
Dude, wait till you, I don't know. You might not get out of what this changed my life. So understanding that Larry is whispering to me allows me to then hear him and then notice, oh, Larry's in the room. Okay, Larry, can't talk to you right now, right? So then we get to the point of all of the jokes I wrote all of the best stuff I tend to have comes in conversation, jamming with other people, or on stage. And she said, why do you think that is? And I was like, I have no idea. And she goes, well, you're on stage. You have nothing but a crowd of people supporting you, cheering you on. That gives you confidence and lets you go. When you're sitting at your computer, you're sitting with one person, Larry, and he's sitting there going, you're not good enough. That's not funny. That's not funny. And you will get no work done. And once I kind of understood that, it allowed me to go, okay, listen for Larry and stop. Be happy with writing shit.
Yeah.
Write crap. Write like you have a bad idea, just write it and put it all down and then go back and edit it or go back and do it. But it's like, be okay with a joke not being funny because Larry will try to cut you off and tell you it's not good before it gets anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you in reality, every tweet that I've ever had that went well was one that I went, I probably shouldn't send this. And everyone that I'm like, this is hilarious, 3 likes.
You can put the Larry in hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, once I kind of got that note that I'm like, oh, you're just sitting with a guy a very strict boss. It's like, you're not going to get anything done. And and she said to me, she goes, if you worked with a guy who was that mean to you, would you keep working at that store? And I was like, I would quit. And she was like, so stop being that mean to yourself. And I was like, fuck lady, you're right. But that was game changing for me to kind of just understand that.
Got to keep your mood up because one thing I notice is if I'm in a good state of mind, I'm coming up with ideas like crazy, but I can be depressive too. It's not severe, luckily, thank God. But like,
sure,
I just, I notice these patterns where if I'm like, this is awesome, I'm coming up with all kinds of stuff. So just got to like get yourself into that.
And that's a little bit what the Adderall does. It gives you a little bit of gives you a little bit of a meth push, which gives you a little bit of happiness, which gives you a little bit of like, it allows you to create, allows you to work, it allows you to pick things up.
You're motivated.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you need a little bit, you need to be confident. And all these depressed comedians are like, I never get anything. It's like, and you're not going to get anything if you keep hating yourself, if you keep cutting yourself down. It's like everyone goes like, Chris Rock will get everything or Kevin Hart will get everything because he believes he can. He goes for it. There's no Larry in there telling me he's going to fail. He's like, what are you talking about, Larry? The business is booming. But, guys like us who aren't famous, the shop's a little bare. Mm-hmm. So we go, well, maybe this is why. Maybe I shouldn't try to sell these new crazy things. It's like, man, stop listening to that fucking guy.
What's crazy is like, I give out advice to comedians, but the one thing I do more is build their confidence because I can see that that's what they need more than anything. A lot of them are very funny. They don't need my advice. They just need the reassurance.
Let me tell you a rule I believe about comedians. And this is 99% of comedians. If they're funny, it's like this is 100% of comedians. If you think it's funny, it's funny. The Absolutely. Problem is here, like even if it's a fart joke, even if it's a pedophile joke, the problem is showing people why it's funny. So if you had a thought, no matter the thought, and you think it's funny, it is funny. You just have to find a way to get people to see what you see. Now, that's the hard thing. Sometimes to see what you see, they had to live your life. So sometimes you can't show them it's funny because you can't put them in your shoes. But that's everything you ever think is funny. You thought it was funny.
The context is the hard part of comedy, is getting that context. That's why the relatable stuff's easy. You got to take them in. You had to be there. That's the opposite. Right. You had to be there. No, you get them there. Take them there.
Get them there. And do what you got to do to figure that out. If you think it's funny, it is funny. Will it work always? Yeah, no, it doesn't really matter. But do not question if it's funny. It is. Ask yourself, is it original? Because a lot of times, and it's not original. It's like, well, why did you think it was funny if you heard it a billion times? Maybe you got to show them why you thought that. It's like, just don't question whether or not it's funny because the fact that you laughed at it is.
Right. I love that.
Maybe it's just a moment in time too, that maybe it won't be funny tomorrow, but that moment of time, it was funny. So it's still funny.
Right. Sorry. It's just a matter of connection. Yes. You connected those unlike ideas in that moment. It surprised yourself. So how do you communicate that and connect that with other people? So they get that same feeling.
Yes. Yeah. Comedy's a lot easier than people think.
Yeah.
It's a lot of psychology. It's crazy.
It is.
More psychology than it is. Well, it's equal parts, I feel like.
It is.
To get it to bridge it, not to create it, but to make it work.
You have to have some understanding.
Also, how many shitty comedians have you seen that just make you fucking laugh because they're confident or whatever, And it's like, how many times, like as comedians in the beginning, you keep trying to write that super deep joke, that idea no one's ever come out with, when the reality is like, I don't know, man, just have a good time. People want that more than anything. They just want to have a good time. So it's like, yeah, share your art and be good on your art, but don't worry about being like, it's got to be word perfect and I got to take out the song and dance because that's not real. It's like, no, dude, comedy is joyous communication. It's all it is. Just make people have joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's figuring out the right amount of sugar around the pill so that people don't realize that they're taking the pill, but not too much sugar that it's too sweet. Some people just prefer cheese around the pill.
Right. It's funny you say cheese in the pill. I used to always say sneaking a shiv into jail. It's how much cake do you get around the shiv to bring to someone in prison. And you just got to keep putting shiv. You know, the shiv is talking about pedophilia. So you need to just surround that thing with cake so that people can eat it and then stab themselves in the belly.
All right. We're running out of time. So, God, you've had so many, you brought so many good nuggets of information. I normally ask at the end, what's one piece of advice you would give a comic that wants to do a joke about homophobia or find a way?
I'd say don't. That's my act, baby.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
There it is.
I mean, I hope you can use some of that. I don't know. I did a lot of rambling and shit, but I thanks for having me on. Yeah,
of course. Plugs, social media. What are you working on?
Oh, right. The one thing I would plug is definitely check out my podcast, the Rad Dude Cast. I do it with Anthony DeVito and a guy, Brendan Ayer. It's I'm not an arrogant person. I honestly think it's one of the funniest things I ever do. It's just three guys being funny. The rule of the podcast is we just whatever idea someone has, we have to do it. There is no saying no. So it's it's just a lot of zany. It's just a very easy podcast to listen to because it's just funny. You could follow me on Greg. I think it's Greg Stone on everything. I would appreciate some Instagram followers because I'm trying to get to the amount of numbers where you can start putting YouTube videos in your thing. So that is kind of a goal I'm trying to push. I do a Mandalorian recap where we just talk about Star Wars. That's on YouTube. You can check that out. Yeah, that's it, I guess. But thank you for letting me. I have to be better at plugs. Every time someone says, do you want to do plugs? I always say, please donate to molesteddogs.com. That's molested, DAWGS. And I think I'd rather do a joke on something stupid than actually plug my actual things. But my manager was like, you need to start telling people about your stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but time to go to molested dogs, DAWGS, because they're my dogs and they've been molested. Some people, it's that's so much funnier than me to do that. But it's yes, so I'll, sometimes people are petting dogs too low. Okay. So we gotta stop that. molesteddogs.com.
Hey, the belly rub it stops at where the skin starts.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right. Well, dude, thanks for jumping on. And remember that, even though it might be a societal construct, even though it might be oversimplified, and even though you may want to cancel that person, take a step back and remember that you can laugh at that.
We've done about 50 episodes, I think, and this is definitely top 5 for me, for sure. Very good.
That's really nice. That's really nice.
It was all me that did it, not you, Greg.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, you're very funny, and this was a very great conversation on top of that, so it's good. Yeah.
Special thanks to Golden Ox Studio. You can find Golden Ox Studio for all your podcasting needs at goldenoxstudio.com. Hit up Jeremy. He is fantastic to work with, a professional. He makes podcasting easy. And if you've been kicking the tires on starting your own podcast, definitely give Golden Ox Studio a look.
If you'd like to weigh in on today's topic, follow us on Twitter at YouCan'tLaughPod, or like us on Facebook at You Can't Laugh at That, and tell us how you did laugh at today's topic, or how you didn't. This is all about the conversation, is what I'm saying. All right. Bye.